Hello viewers, in my last video I discussed regarding the Eucalyptus architecture for designing private clouds. Now there has got some operation modes in Eucalyptus. So in this video I'll be discussing regarding the operation modes, the four different operating modes which are there for Eucalyptus architecture in cloud computing for designing your private cloud and how these requests are internally routed and mapped. So stay tuned to this video to understand what are the operation modes in Eucalyptus. This is Ranjiraj and you're streaming on the Study Beast. So first of all, there is one diagram like I've discussing for the previous other videos for other topics. Now there is one operation mode diagram in this. You need to understand it very simple. Before understanding this, we will move on to the theory part to understand what all are the different modes. Then we'll move on to this diagram. So this diagram is very simple that you have to decide the features which you want. So basically in Eucalyptus, it provides four different features. So first is network isolation. Second is elastic IPs. Then is the security groups, and then is the metadata service. So these are the four different services which Eucalyptus Cloud provide for designing your private clouds. So first of all, deciding on the features means deciding whether you want all the four features or any one or two or three out of this. So that is basically the very first step in its operation mode. Then if you select the elastic IPs along with the security groups, and if you also has a layer 2 VM network isolation, also you have a VLAN clean, that is you do the network isolation perfectly, or if you want to wait, then it will opt for the managed mode, that is the very first mode. So the very first managed mode, it is more of the complex than any of the other three modes. So the managed mode basically supports all of the four features which Eucalyptus provides, and so it becomes the most complicated one. So in this, the basic idea is that first of all, in managed mode, user will opt for or create a large network. Now this large network is used, or he want to initiate or assign private IP addresses to each of the VM machines. So for that, he what basically does is that he has to create some kind of mechanism so that each of the VM instances will be mapped to that particular private IP addresses. So for that, he will firstly create those device, or it may be like in a moreover private and the non-routable. So first of all, he will have to obtain those IPs, pool of IPs. So before that, he need to have a particular kind of security groups. So in managed mode, what basically it does is it creates different kinds of security groups, security group 1, SG1, SG2, likewise, and each of the security groups will be assigned a set of or a subset of IPs from the pool of IP addresses. And at the time of VM creation, DHCP server, that is a dynamic host configuration protocol server, is used to instantiate the private IP addresses to this VM instances. So that is the basic idea of this managed mode. So in order to assign this private IP addresses, basically all of these things you need to categorize or you need to go through. So first of all, it does all the four services. So I will talk one by one. So first is the network isolation. So network isolation is managed mode is done by means of VLAN, that is a virtual local area network. It has its own internal VLAN system. So if there is any other physical resource accessing those VLAN or the network, then it should not conflict. So in order to prevent that conflict or to isolate it from seeing that what other processes or what other VM systems are accessing it, so it needs a network isolation. So that is mainly done by the managed mode. So in managed mode, this VLAN is present between the node controller and your cluster controller. So if there are multiple clusters within, like if there is one set of cluster and there are multiple clusters on top of that, you use a layer 2 VM isolation. So that layer 2 VM isolation is basically used if you have a multiple number of clusters. So likewise, if you have more number of clusters, you need to have layer 3 VM network isolation. So that is also there in the further mode. So I will discuss that also. And in this elastic IPs, elastic basically means a large extent or a abundant amount of IPs. So that is what elastic IPs. So elastic IPs in managed mode is mainly mapped from the your public IP addresses to each of the individual private IP addresses. And basically ACS is used, that is access control is used to define the security groups. Now this is the IP address or how it is being mapped. Like you have a set of public IP addresses, and these public IP addresses are mapped to the private IP addresses. So these IP addresses are basically like their naming convention starts from your basic like 198.162.0.0 or 10.0.xxx like that. So that's all about this private the elastic IP. And talking about this security groups, so these security groups are mainly used for controlling, or it's like a firewall basically for accepting the ingress rules. What all like request or hit it should accept, and what all it should process, and it should then give out. So that is the managed mode, all about this four basic types of features. And one more is that the metadata service means it will fetch along with its data that what all things it has done step by step. So all will be in a list carried out where you can get in a log file like at what time what service hit and what all were the procedures. So that is the managed mode in this. So likewise you have another managed mode, but in this managed mode there is no VLAN mechanism. That is, you don't have any kind of network isolation in that. Instead it is not kept, or they have designed in such a way that for Eucalyptus that no VLAN mechanism is there. No VLAN mechanism is there because if kind of any priority activities is going on one VM machine, and second VM machine is full-fledged executing it, and if there is any high priority or any kind of most critical activities are carried out in the public, not in the public, the private cloud, and then any system configuration needs to be changed, then it has to hold on. So to hold on, a root user on VM can snoop into another VMs running on the same network on the layer 2 if there are multiple clusters. So it can accidentally or by intentionally stop its another VM's execution into that. So that's why there is no network isolation. So in some cases this managed no VLAN mode is used. And you can have this no VLAN mode feature ditched out, and you can do it by having an access at the layer 3, but it will have limited number of isolation, not as like much which has the managed mode got. So that's all about the managed no VLAN mode. And then comes the system mode, which is the most simplest kind of modes among the all four. So it has the least number of features available, but when it comes to assigning a private IP, then this task becomes a bit difficult, because first of all it has to get some MAC address, that is medium access control address. This MAC address has to be configured to the VM instances, and finally it has to get attached to the node controller's bridge port to the device which you are connecting. That if it is an Ethernet device, it has to, the node controller's bridge port has to connect with the Ethernet device, and then all the IP assignment gets done. So it's like a moreover like a complicated process, and that's why it is kept as simple. This is simplest mode among the all four. Then comes the static mode. Static mode is similar to this system mode, but it moreover has a got a better control for IP assignment than this system mode. So it has basically its own set of, it has created at the back end. It has got its set of MAC addresses or IP addresses. So whenever there is a VM instance taking place, or it is found to see that any kind of static entry is there, so it will dynamically map, not dynamically, it will statically map those entry into the VM's directory by using a DHCP server. And if there is subsequent calls for this VM instance to be created, then it will directly map the next MAC address or IP addresses from its static entry table. So it's like it has got its own set of IP addresses, and it's assigning one after the other. So, uh, like I've told, the managed mode is accessible when you have all these features, yes. And if you decide on the features, some set of features, if there is elastic IPs and security groups, and if there is no network or DHCP server, then and it has not got anything else, then it will be moving to the static mode. And if elastic IPs and security groups are not there and network DHCP server is there, then it will move to the system mode, which is the very simplest mode. And if it has got elastic IPs and security groups as well as layer 2 network isolation, and if it has not got any network DHCP server, then it will go to managed noVLAN mode. Similarly, if this is not possible, then this is also not possible. Means from layer 2 network isolation, you cannot go to network DHCP server, and from here you cannot have any kind of modes. Similarly, from VLAN clean, also you have no modes possible. So, well, that's about the operation modes of Eucalyptus in cloud computing. So, hope you enjoyed this video. If you found this video helpful, please hit the like button, and if you haven't subscribed to my channel, please subscribe. Thanks for watching this video.